Normally, my rant videos are solely reserved for Pokemon TCG Live. After all, the game's nearly 4 years old, yet playing with your balls still might not produce anything good. But then the TCG Pocket dev insulted its longest tenured players, so I'm going full Cornerstone mask off today. If you've been living under a Solrock, to celebrate the 1-year anniversary of Pocket, the Pokemon Company finally revealed what the advance ticket was for. And it's even worse than you could possibly imagine. Instead of something cool like an exclusive art or a pack featuring an immersive or two at random, it was a lottery. Except unlike a typical lottery where you waste $5 and get nothing in return aside from a fleeting moment of what if, as the numbers are called, here you realize you wasted a year of your life while the owners of that lottery made $1 billion off of you. Basically, 100 players with an advance ticket would be chosen at random to receive 1,200 pack hourglasses, which is the equivalent of 100 packs. And 10,000 players would receive the second place prize of 120 pack hourglasses, which is worth 10 packs. Okay, so what's the problem? Well, aside from the fact that Pocket has more than 150 million downloads, meaning 10,100 is less than 1% of a percent, the third place prize is a measly 24 hourglasses or 2 packs. That's less than the prize everyone gets for simply logging into Pocket during its 1-year anniversary, which is one of each Mega Rising pack. Don't worry, it somehow gets worse. And I'm not talking about how those potential winners of the grand prize could be bots, alternate accounts, or people who stopped playing months ago. Look at the fine print on the advance ticket drawing. It says, note, the third prize will also be distributed to players with no advance ticket. I, for example, moved to New Zealand to play Pocket a month early, meaning it's been more than 13 months since I started. And I've even spent money on Pokegold and the Premium Pass, which I regret. Yet somebody who started the game 365 days after me got the same reward as a day -30 player. Because as you probably guessed by now, I was a third place finisher. That's insane and makes you wonder if the dev team hates us. To make matters worse, I opened 35 packs of Mega Rising on day 1 and pulled just a single EX. Yeah, this rant poured out of me like sweat from my butt cheeks after stuffing some Darumaka droppings in my underpants. But that's not the focus of this particular video. I want to talk about the lazy design of Pokemon TCG Pocket. And no, I don't mean how we still have to open promo packs one by one a year later, even as they're giving us an entire event designed to farm packs from every promo period over the last 12 months. Or how you have to go through like 5 different screens and button presses just to register a single card to the card decks. Or how the card decks update people have been begging for since the Deluxe Pack EX launch will take a full year to come out. All this despite Pocket earning more than $1 billion and having more than 150 million downloads. No, I'm here to talk about something that's been bothering me since the launch of TCG Pocket, how it reuses art from existing Pokemon cards. Now, I understand that the Pokemon Company owns the rights to every art they print on a card, but Pocket is one of the highest grossing free-to-play games of all time, yet it reuses assets that are decades old. Because I have way too much time on my feet, I wanted to go back through the entire A block of Pocket to find every single instance of reused art. Then I realized there's over 1,000 cards and cut some corners like a Cleavor trying to install a kitchen counter. Even so, the results were still insane. And before you type in the comments, actually these are paying homage to the original artist, let me say unequivocally no, they absolutely are not. These are just straight rips with no extra effort added except maybe a little more saturation. That's it. I could literally do that in 5 seconds on any photo editing software. Ready? Okay. To keep things uniform like what my ex-wife used to wear on special occasions, the top row will always be Pocket, while the bottom row will always be the main TCG. For Genetic Apex, they couldn't be bothered to come up with new art for the Butterfree line, reusing Caterpie from Expedition in 2002, Metapod from Sun and Moon base set, and Butterfree from Burning Shadows, aka the Rainbow Zard set. If you think that's it, guess again. I literally gave up on Generic Apex after just the grass types, because out of the 32 in the set, 23 of them are reused arts. Clearly it shows they had a lack of faith in the game, not bothering to spend a little extra money on original art. What's funny is that for Cottony and Whimsicott specifically, they took the art from old fairy types, which is a type that doesn't even exist in the TCG anymore. I skimmed through the rest of Genetic Apex and it's truly insane how many arts were just reused from the past. The only nice thing is that at least the attack names are different for the most part. Okay, clearly once they saw the success of Pocket, they'd reverse thrust like a Crocodile and make original assets, right? Of course not. Mythical Islands set A1A continued the trend. Once again, only looking at the grass types, of which there's 9, 7 of them are duplicates. And one of them that's not is Celebi EX because at least they created original art for the multi-prizers. Spacetime Smackdown was the second fully new set in Pocket, introducing 207 cards if you count all the secret rares. There's 22 grass Pokemon in WWE SmackDown, so how many arts do you think were reused? If you guessed half, you're way off. It's actually 17 out of 22. Not even the cool Yarn Oddish is new, that's from 2019's Unbroken Bonds. Oddly though, both Tangela they'd given us at this point in Pocket were new arts from what I could find. But Pilot, I hear you say, you can nae just cherry pick the grass boys, what about the others? Well, my lotioned up subscriber, let's change things with Triumphant Light and look at the 11 water types. Turns out it's improved from a percentage perspective as only 6 out of the 11 are old arts. Though one new art is Glaceon EX and the other is Origin Form Palkia, which doesn't exist as a non-EX in the main card game. So there wasn't any art to actually rip off. Surprisingly, Shining Revelry does an okay job of keeping things fresh like a hello. None of the shinies or ultra rares appear to be duplicates. And even in the main set list, they cut down on the amount of repeats. It's not completely new across the board though, as Charmander and Weasel are both blasts from the past. Fighting is the most egregious, with 6 of 8 being old arts. But overall, I'm impressed. Until I realized most of the Pokemon in Shining Revelry are from the latest generation, meaning they had far less existing art to copy from. Still, a step in the right direction. Unfortunately, they slipped on a doomy when making that step. Just when you think the Pocket devs are turning a corner and running into their axe, Celestial Guardians hits you with a court order to pay alimony. It's honestly shameless how many arts here are straight rips from the main game. I mean, this was the third main set. By this point, Pocket had already made hundreds of millions of dollars. Yet apparently they couldn't afford to pay artists to create new images for Alolan Exeggutor, Masquerain, my favorite Pokemon that nobody likes, Trevenant, neither Rowlet, or even Morolul. They basically just tried to type swap some of them and hope we didn't notice. I went ahead and counted all the dupes in the first 30 cards of Celestial Guardians, not including the EXs, and it was a whopping 28. Yeah, the only 2 new card arts were Zarina and Execute for some reason. Extra Dimensional Crisis introduced Ultra Beasts and their musical-based attack names, so let's look there. Of the 9 non-EX Ultra Beasts, only 4 are redone arts, though for some reason they choose to reuse the art from Beastite. With Eevee Grove, that set focused on the evolutions, so that's where I'll focus. And things start off with a little bit of shenanigans. You see, the Leafeon art is a redo, except they copied it from a promo most people have never seen before. So they tried to sneak this one by us like when you try to fart in class but the wooden chairs amplify the sound and everyone points and laughs at you. Looking at the rest of the non-EX evolutions, literally every single one is an old art. Even the Eevee itself. I also think it's funny when they don't bother changing the attack name either like they did with Espeon. But at least they kept that Vaporeon art, which makes me feel funny down there. The final main set of Pocket's first year, Wisdom of Sea and Sky, focused on the legendaries of Johto. Without refreshing my boomer brain to see if I'm right about their Gen 2 debut, I looked at the first 10 Johto Pokemon in the set. The results were disappointing. Chikorita and Leddyba are copies from cards released like 25 years ago. And if not for Hoppip, all 10 of those Johto Pokemon arts have been done before. Since I won't bother with Deluxe Pack as its whole purpose is to be reprints, the final set of Pocket Year 1 was Secluded Springs. Even though there's too much water in here, that's where I'll look for duplicates. Of the 11 non-EX water types, all of them except Mantike are old. And that's because there's been just one Mantike art released prior to the Scarlet and Violet era. It really is shady how they dip back into the backlog for these arts, isn't it? They'll charge you $15 a month to open 1 extra pack per day, yet they try to trick you into thinking the arts are new because kids with access to their parents' credit cards wouldn't remember that these arts are actually from the e-reader series. Because my insanity knows no bounds, I wanted to skim through every set list in TCG Pocket's first year looking for duplicates. Once I realized how much more work that was, I cut it down to the 4 main sets, only looking at 2 types each, omitting EXs. Acknowledging that I was lazy and didn't cross-reference every card individually, these are the limited results I came up with when it comes to reusing old arts. Yeah, it's staggering. 34 out of 47 grass and fire types in Genetic Apex are dupes, meaning 72% of them are old. Spacetime Smackdown has 30 water and lightning types, only 7 of which are new. The most egregious of the bunch is Frost Rotom, which only has 1 water type in the main TCG. So of course they took it and charged people money for the reskin. And the Magnemite is actually a copy of a copy from the main TCG. Since I already did most of the work for Celestial Guardians, Grass and Fire types, I just reused that data. I expect my job application to the Pokemon Company to be approved any day. Anyway, only 3 are new, meaning that an insane 91% of those arts are reused. And finally, in the interest of fairness, I looked at the Psychic and Fighting types in Wisdom of Sea and Sky, as a lot of them were unfamiliar to me. Well, the reason for that is because a lot of the arts are old enough to vote. So even when I went out of my way to find a pocket of cards that looked new, 26 out of 32, or 81%, were reused. If these numbers don't jump out at you like a Magikarp, you might be in a little too deep on Pokemon side. Realistically, 0% of the cards in Pocket should be straight rips from the main TCG. But in some instances, it's over 90 freaking percent. By this point, you're probably wondering what's wrong with me. Well, there's too many things to list. Also, you're probably thinking that the Pokemon Company could have taken a few minutes off from eating caviar off furries dressed as Lopunny to open their billion-dollar purse strings and pay artists in year 2 $50 to ensure every art is unique. Of course, that's not the case. I did a quick 10-second look through Mega Rising. Just using my gigantic brain's memory, I found these 5 grass-type cards at the start of the set all in a row that are all duplicates. And some of the attack names are even copied. They aren't even trying to be subtle at this point. Ironically, they also brought over a trainer card from the main game directly into Pocket without changing the effect. The name of that card? Copycat. Yeah, the jokes write themselves at this point. At least the art's different though, copying other trainers in Mega Rising like Hala, Fantina, and Lycia. Because the Pokemon Company released videos to celebrate each respective game's first year, I thought it'd be sad to compare how both Pocket and Live did in their first 365 days. Just keep in mind that Live didn't officially release until the previous better game, Pokemon Trading Card Game Online, was shut down, which didn't happen until more than a year after Live first launched. Anyway, Pocket had 12 billion with a B battles in year 1, compared to just 60 million with an M in Live. When I tweeted out these stats, I had a few replies about how Pocket battles are shorter, so it's not a fair comparison. Okay, let's say Live battles are 5 times as long. 60 million times 5 is 300 million. Which means Pocket still saw 40 times more people beating each other off in its first year. There's not really another through line you can draw when comparing the two except downloads. Pocket is over 150 million across Android and Apple. Live's numbers, meanwhile, have never been reported. However, it's at more than 5 million on Android. If we add 5 million for Apple and another 5 million for PC, that's still 10% of Pocket despite both being free. And if you didn't know, Live is fully free, as in it has no microtransactions whatsoever. That's to its detriment, of course, but you get what you pay for. Okay, so what was the point of this video? I don't know either. Maybe it's to say that even if you failed 11th grade and were forced to repeat it, reusing your homework from last year is fine, so long as you use a slightly brighter font. Because as this Gacha Gaming revenue report shows, Pocket made $43 million in October, making it the 3rd highest grossing game of the month. As a reminder, this was a rant video, meaning I barely put any work into it, it wasn't well researched like a professor, and I gave it an inflammatory title to entice people who took a break from scrolling Reddit and looking for hate threads there to further increase their rage here. On that note, leave your TCG Pocket rants in the comments below, making sure to bait as many replies as possible with your takes so the video gets more engagement.